Jeff Cobb, we've been announcing that for about a week here. Jeff Cobb was a former Nash County Commissioner, 75 years of age, found dead on November 11th, 2014. And his home was on Jeffries Court. So that's a little bit of information about background about Jeff Cobb.
Absolutely. So this was not a robbery. He was found dead in his home, and we're going to get into all the details. Right?
Okay.
But this was not a robbery.
Okay.
The folks, whoever killed Mr. Cobb wasn't trying to steal his watch or his television or whatever. You know, they were there to kill him, right? Okay, and there's indication, there's certain reasons why we know this, right?
Okay.
So one, Sergeant Bunt with the cold case unit in Rocky Mount, you know, he has confronted me that there was no indication of robbery as a motive at all. So nothing was taken, nothing was stolen, you know. So it's all in how he died, right? So we're gonna do something that probably gonna be uncomfortable for some folks. So I want to warn the family. You know, if we're gonna show a couple drawings here in a minute from Mr. Cobb's autopsy. There's Mr. Cobb. So if you don't want to see this, you know, tune out for a couple minutes, because although these are not photos or anything, I would never show that, but I want people to see from these autopsy pictures exactly how brutal Mr. Cobb's death was, right? So you know, this is a situation where when you go to rob someone, you stab them once or twice, right? Mm-hmm. This was a situation where Mr. Cobb was stabbed 4 dozen times.
4 dozen?
4 dozen, right. Not a dozen, not 2 dozen, 4 dozen times. And in the first picture, you'll see that he's got 22 stab wounds on his chest right there. Right? Look at that, folks.
Oh, my word.
That is anger. That is emotion, that is passion right there. 22 stab wounds on his chest. And you can see, and then on the back, he's got, well, on the back, exactly, y'all doing a great job back there. On the back, he had another 24 stab wounds, right? And if you'll see on some of those stab wounds, there's a circle with an X, right? And what that is that X is the tip of a Phillips screwdriver.
So he was stabbed all those times totally with only a screwdriver.
Right.
It was used for every stab.
As far as the medical examiners can determine.
Wow,
So,
a screwdriver. Is that something you think they just picked up and found, or is it something they had readily?
You're asking all the right questions, and we'll hold on one second. And
I'm intrigued.
No, you're asking all the right questions. So on those stab wounds, it's a cross mark, and then there's a lot of those you saw had round bruises around them, that circle around it. And what that was the as the screwdriver came down into Mr. Cobb's body, it went all the way, the shaft all the way down to the handle.
In, and the round.
And the roundness is the bottom of the handle.
Oh.
So this was a brutal,
horrible,
brutal murder. This wasn't once or twice, and the screwdriver penetrated his heart, his lungs, and his liver. Right? Okay. So this man was killed in a manner that was probably a terrible way to die. Right. I mean, any way to die is bad, but I mean, this was excruciating, and he felt every one of those 4 dozen stab wounds that penetrated his heart, his lungs, his liver. Then they continued to stab him in the back. He had abrasions on his knees, which meant that during the attack he fell to his knees, and the attack continued. Right. He had That's
interesting.
He had a subdermal hemorrhage on the back of his head where either he was hit to start this attack, or he fell down during the attack and hit his head. But either way, he bruised his head pretty bad, and he had defensive wounds all over his hands. So Mr. Cobb is, 75-year-old man fighting for his life from someone who stabbed him 4 dozen times. And I think,
could a female do that? Could a female really? Could he not?
I think so. I think so. I think so because of his age, and because if they started in the back, really no way to really know, at least from with my level of experience, whether the attack started in the back. Maybe he could have been hit in the head, and then the attack starts on his back, and then the front. We don't really know, but there is a question there as far as who could have done this, and I think you talked about the fact that a screwdriver was
go back to the screwdriver. Right. I'm still wanting to know about the screwdriver.
Lieutenant Mosley with the Rocky Mount PD, when we had this conversation, he said that's a very unconventional weapon to use, right? People don't walk around with screwdrivers too. So questions that I have that they were hesitant to answer for the purpose of their investigation, which I completely understand and respect. But if a screwdriver seems like a weapon that you would just grab.
Right. That's what I was.
Right.
Asking.
So is there a missing screwdriver at Mr. Cobb's house? Does he have a set? Does he have a set of 5 screwdrivers and one of them's missing?
Right.
Is there an indication of that this screwdriver belonged to him? And it was used, it was picked up and used.
Okay, if it was used at the house, that means that the emotion or when they got mad, it started at the house.
Right.
It wasn't a situation then where they come looking for him, because they would have had their own weapon or whatever. So this was something that was spur of the moment, is my point.
Right.
Is that correct?
I think so. I think from what we know, I think so. I think, and it's also a crime of passion, and we'll get into next week. There's a whole lot more information in the autopsy report, and that's we'll talk about a lot of that next week. But it circles back around to what I was telling you folks last week, is that most of this information is public record. There's some things that I get from law enforcement and talk to them, but a lot of these cases are so old that the information has to come from public records.
Right.
And the autopsy here, you can go. And like I said before, everything that we do here, I'm going to explain to folks so they can do it themselves. Right? There's no magic formula to all this. Right? It's simple research. So you can go online. You can go to the North Carolina Medical Examiner's office, and you can go on there if you know the county that someone died in. And sometimes you don't even have to know that, but you get it faster. The more you know, the faster you get it. Right. So if you know the county that someone died in, and you know the date that they died, and usually their name, you can enter that information into the medical examiner's office, and they will give you. You will usually get. It used to take weeks and weeks and weeks. You get the hard copy in the mail, but nowadays usually they email you everything within a few days. Now things have been a little bit slow because of the shutdown and all that stuff. But if there's somebody that that died and you want to know more about it, it's all public record. Folks can go right on the medical examiner's website, put in the name, get the information.
Well, so it's time to go.
It's time to go. That was quick. Yeah, well, no, this is perfect, because I want people to know that I wanted to talk about that and get the screwdriver out of the way, and let people know exactly how horrible that Mr. Cobb's death was.
Oh.
And next week at this time, we're going to talk about the evidence that was left behind and what indicates why it may have been a woman and what led to that.
Wow. Okay, we'll be right back. This is very intriguing.